All aboard, revolutionaries! Good evening. My name is Susann Lagore, and I'm joining you from the University of Calgary.
Hello.
Tonight, I have the great privilege of discussing key elements of All Aboard, a research project focused on transportation and the autism spectrum. But first, I'd like to share a story. I was sitting down for lunch at a funeral about a month ago, and an unabashedly proud beef producer leaned over to my mother-in-law and asked her what she thought of the new Beyond Meat burger. She immediately passed the weighty responsibility of answering over to me. You guessed it, I am a vegetarian. Cheers, cheers. Given that we were in rural Alberta, this prompted a somewhat unsurprising conversation with pithy retorts like, our teeth were designed to eat steak. But the point of this story has nothing to do with the quality of my canines or the Alberta economy, and everything to do with autism. When my son was about 5, he pulled our cat's tail, and naturally he was reprimanded, told, we have to be nice to Ollie, he's our friend. About a year later, someone explained to him that bacon does not actually come from the bacon fairy. And from then on, he flatly refused to eat meat. His reason? Animals are my friends, and I don't eat my friends. His comment, while cute enough to convert me from roast to red pepper, was actually a window into his extremely logical way of thinking. And by the time he was finished grade 3, he was in fact diagnosed with autism. Autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, is a lifelong neurocognitive condition characterized by social communication differences, restricted and repetitive behavior patterns, and frequently sensory sensitivity. Though much more common in boys than girls, it impacts all racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic groups. Autism is diagnosed based on behavior rather than brain scans or blood tests. And as a spectrum, it impacts individuals to vastly different degrees in terms of cognition, affect, and level of support required. So what does this have to do with public transit? Well, for this population, a lot. Most of us take for granted the role transportation plays in our lives. We have access to numerous options that allow us to somewhat seamlessly navigate the environments in which we live, work, and play. But for those on the autism spectrum, lack of independent mobility can present a significant obstacle to employment, community inclusion, and self-determination. While up to 30% of those without intellectual disability obtain a driver's license, most rely on family and friends to get around, who in turn forego their own activities in order to provide transportation. Paratransit may be an option, but it's not cost-effective, particularly for the taxpayer. Demand is increasing, often where availability isn't. Wide arrival windows can render it unsuitable for employment and education, and many on the spectrum just don't qualify. So what about fixed route transit? Well, indulge me for a moment and think about your socks. Are they itchy, tight? Is one higher than the other, or are they slumped down around your ankles? Chances are you haven't thought about your socks at all since you put them on. But imagine if the sensory information your brain was receiving from the environment were so amplified that the feeling of socks on your feet and the smell of tuna fish on your neighbor's breath and the buzzing of the lights was so intense, you couldn't tune it out. Now picture this. You arrive at a busy transit station. You have to hurry to buy your ticket because people are already boarding the train. You pull your sleeve down over your fingers before touching the buttons. Yuck, germs. The chatter is deafening and someone is actually spitting sunflower seeds onto the ground. You squeeze into the overcrowded train, straddle a hockey bag, stumble over people's legs. You finally manage to secure some real estate right near the emergency box. You hate being this close to anyone, but it's really important to get that spot because it's the only place that you feel safe. For those on the spectrum, challenges accessing transit range from anxiety and sensory overwhelm to difficulty handling unexpected route changes. But one of the greatest obstacles are actually people like me, well-meaning parents who don't think transit is an option. In fact, Over 80% of us will end up providing a lifelong taxi service. Some skills, like being prepared for the weather, may take longer to develop in someone who has difficulty with executive function. And while fixed route transit isn't for everyone, my research indicates that professionals working with this population have far greater confidence in their ability to navigate transit than parents do. Though the benefits of transit training are clear, they're generally not specific to autism, not offered in public schools, and not included in individualized education or transition plans. It's estimated that less than 12% of this population receive any transit training. I think I'm in a position that allows me to say this. I believe transportation access for this population hinges on parents. My research suggests we don't sufficiently teach pedestrian skills. We rarely access transit ourselves or with our kids, and few of us actively plan how they might get around as adults. Parents are an amazing resource. We are uniquely suited to be involved in the earlier and more extensive exposure that a rider on the spectrum might need. But parents would benefit from interventions like workshops or travel training guidelines, and most importantly, the opportunity to engage in dialogue around key concerns like safety. With the right support, public transit can offer the population on the autism spectrum greater opportunity for independence, self-efficacy, and contribution to society. Thank you so much.